Chapter 61. You'd even be my mistress? Adrian, what are you doing? Ava used her chopsticks to block the egg Adrian was about to put in his mouth. Adrian turned his head, looking at her in confusion. Did you forget you're allergic to eggs? Ava took the chopsticks from Adrian's hand and pulled out a new pair from the drawer by the table. Adrian looked down as Ava moved the dish containing eggs away, placing it at the farthest position from him. I'm not allergic anymore. Not allergic anymore? Ava was a bit surprised. On Adrian's 16th birthday, she'd wanted to give him a special gift. After thinking it over, she couldn't figure out what to give. The Pierce family had power and wealth. No matter how precious something was, Adrian could easily obtain it. Later, Mrs. Quinn had reminded her. Sincerity mattered most, so she'd decided to make a cake for Adrian herself. She'd spent an entire afternoon learning from Mrs. Quinn before finally producing something that looked and tasted decent. That evening, after Adrian finished class, she gave it to him. Adrian had reacted just as she'd expected. He really liked it. But after just a few bites, red rashes began appearing on his body. Ava had been terrified. After all, she'd only been clinging to this golden goose for a year. Moreover, Adrian had become like that from eating something she'd made. Her tears had fallen immediately, on one hand thinking she might lose her meal ticket, on the other wondering if the Pierce family would make her pay with her life. Before the doctor arrived, Adrian had held her the whole time, saying it was fine, just an allergic reaction. He wouldn't die. Adrian's words had made the 11-year-old girl feel inexplicably frightened. Adrian clearly knew he was allergic to eggs and couldn't eat cake, yet right in front of her, he'd smiled and eaten the cake that would cause his allergic reaction. Back then, Ava had realized Adrian had psychological issues, just like her. In short, not a normal person, though she valued her life more than Adrian did. Adrian said coolly, "If you eat enough of it, the allergy goes away." Ava took a sip of water, pretending nothing had happened. The man's voice suddenly came from beside her. "Aren't you going to ask why I ate so much?" Ava indicated she didn't want to ask. Someone crazy like Adrian would only act self-destructively under one circumstance, when he realized he'd been abandoned. "After you left." Without waiting for Ava's answer, Adrian spoke first. His gaze on her profile was exceptionally cold. Ava chewed and swallowed her food slowly. The air in the private room gradually solidified, leaving only the sound of chopsticks hitting plates. After a long while, Ava finally looked at Adrian and spoke. "Adrian, do you hate me?" "Yes." Adrian's answer was concise and straightforward. Ava's hand under the table slowly clenched. She secretly made a decision in her heart. "Adrian, what do I need to do for you to stop being angry?" Adrian asked back. "Want to atone?" Ava nodded emphatically. "I don't want you trapped in hatred. As long as you can let go of your anger, I'll do anything." "You'd even be my mistress?" Ava was slightly stunned. He had quite the imagination. "Mr. Pierce, Mrs. Pierce?" Ava, dressed in a white dress, held the season's latest designer handbag in front of her with both hands, greeting Edward Pierce and Stella Pierce obediently. "Are we changing brides?" Edward Pierce glanced coolly at his son. He didn't particularly care which Hart daughter his son ultimately married. Besides, he wasn't optimistic about Grace. No challenge to conquer. It didn't fit his son's usual character. Ava said with a smile, "Mr. Pierce, I'm just accompanying Adrian back to get something. Stella Pierce interrupted with a cold laugh. "You're over 20 years old, still calling him brother this and brother that. I can smell the tea all the way over here." Edward Pierce laughed heartily and put his arm around his wife's shoulders. Stella seemed accustomed to his gesture, her eyes showing no ripples, no intimacy, no joy, no disgust either. Only numbness. "Mrs. Pierce, I didn't—" Tears welled up in Ava's eyes as she looked helplessly at Adrian. "What were you doing when you were in your 20s? Running away every day, making your friends' and family's lives a complete mess?" The calm in Stella's eyes vanished, replaced by resentment. Before anyone could react, she'd already grabbed the water glass on the table and hurled it viciously at Adrian. Adrian didn't dodge. The glass hit him squarely on the forehead. "Adrian!" Ava cried out in alarm. Crash! The glass fell to the ground with a sound. Water mixed with shards scattered across the floor. Bright red blood flowed down Adrian's brow bone past his eyes. It's all because of you. You ruined my entire life. I should have aborted you before you were even born, you ungrateful wretch. Didn't you try? Adrian's lips curved up. He smiled coldly, the blood on his face making him look wickedly beautiful. That man ended up with a broken leg, didn't he? Adrian's eyes held mockery. If you had the guts, you should have aborted me back then. Coming to threaten me now just makes you look like a joke. When Stella had gotten pregnant with Adrian, she'd wanted to go to the hospital for surgery. The person accompanying her had been Stella's first love. Edward Pierce's network was vast. How could he not find them? The moment the two entered the hospital, Edward had followed. Stella didn't get to have the abortion, and her first love's leg was broken on Edward's orders. Edward had warned Stella that next time, he'd take the man's life. After that, Stella's heart had died. She returned to the Pierce estate to peacefully carry the pregnancy to term. You... Stella's face flushed red with anger at her son's words. She clutched her chest, her face gradually turning pale. Edward frowned at his son, whose face was half covered in blood, but his eyes held no trace of concern. He tightened his arm around his wife and said sternly, "Apologize to your mother? What did I say that was wrong?" After saying this, Adrian pulled Ava upstairs. Edward couldn't tolerate anyone defying him. His son's current behavior was undoubtedly challenging his authority. He released his wife and stood up. "Adrian Pierce!" He took 2 steps at once to reach his son from behind. "Mr. Pierce." Ava's voice rang out simultaneously with an extremely crisp, loud slap. But the slap didn't land on Adrian's face. It landed on Ava's. She'd caught sight of Edward approaching from the corner of her eye and had pushed Adrian aside just as he raised his hand. Edward had used his full strength in that slap. Ava was struck dizzy and disoriented. Her left cheek swelled at a visible rate. If this slap didn't earn Adrian's trust, she'd really have to take extreme measures and find a master to put a curse on him. "Ava!" Adrian frantically pulled Ava over to look at the injury on her face. The corner of her mouth was torn. Blood seeped from her lip. "I'm fine." Ava showed a fragile smile. When she curved her lips, it pulled at the corner of her mouth, making her hiss softly in pain.